Hi guys, minerals. And we talked about minerals briefly, back before. A big thing that constituents of the body that we had on the first quiz and skeletal formation, that's the foundation, the groundwork for everything on the body. And so calcium's going to account for about half of the total body mineral that we have. So when I say skeletal formation right here and maintenance on it, I'm primarily looking at calcium and phosphorus as our two primary minerals to fill that capacity. Now, protein synthesis, and going back to some, basic chemistry, your simplest bond is your hydrogen bond. And so that doesn't do a whole lot for us from an actual protein standpoint. We have some hydrogens with it. For us, the one for protein synthesis, it's probably more important, is going to be your sulfur. And the reason is that sulfur, guys, is going to give you your disulfide bonds. So complex molecules, after we get protein synthesis, are going to come through. And actually, we're going to end up with a disulfide bond that can hold it in its active configuration. Where we were talking those enzymes and hormones, man, they are complex molecules. And so when we get into the 2 weeks of proteins, we'll really break it down. Oxygen transport, for me, I'm going to tell you the most common one here that we're going to use is going to be iron. And iron's going to be a component of hemoglobin, and transporting oxygen to tissues through the bloodstream. Fluid balance is another fancy way right here of saying electrolytes. And when we pop in electrolytes, we tend to think sodium, potassium. I'm going to tell you, for me personally, I've gotten more into a coconut water. And coconut water is high in potassium. And so when you lose a lot of electrolytes in the summer, your joints hurt, your shoulders hurt, all your joints, muscles are a little tired. A lot of times we're low on our electrolytes. So sodium, potassium, and if you think also, there's a lot of that cell membranes where you have a sodium and potassium. You have one on one side of membrane, one on the other. And so our little wave of depolarizations, the way we signal some things are going to revolve around those. Enzyme systems, multiple ones there, some coenzymes, some manganese, some zinc, some coppers, a ton of them. And now probably the biggest one down here is going to be our mineral and vitamin relationships. And, to have calcium and phosphorus together, but not in the presence of vitamin D, is going to cause you some issues. Some others we can run into also will be vitamin E and selenium. So selenium and vitamin E will give us some issues in terms of metabolism and utilization on those minerals. So we had two classifications of carbohydrates, structural and storage. We had two classifications of amino acids, essential and non-essential. We have two classifications of minerals. And so macrominerals are needed in grams per day. And the biggest thing, you say, boy, that's a lot compared to micro or milligrams. And the thing with grams per day, if you realize there's 453 plus, I think 453.9 or something, grams in a pound, then you realize, a couple of grams or a gram of this a day is really not that much. Microminerals need to be in milligrams or micrograms per day. And another way to look at those two, you may have seen in various different components, would be parts per million or parts per billion. And so that's where we come in. Microminerals in small amounts, the others in a lot larger. Factors affecting absorption of minerals, and obvious is age. Younger we are, more efficient we are, all the systems work properly. We're still in a growth phase, so we're going to utilize more. That baby's born at 19, 20 inches long, and by the time they're two, they're 32, 33 inches. So the most rapid growth occurs early in life. Form of the element, I told you they're all inorganic, because when we burn that, cremate a body, then what's left in the urn is strictly the mineral content. And so, we say inorganic, but at times we'll turn around and add them to another component, like a chelating component. And in this case, a lot of those times we'll add them maybe to an amino acid. But a lot of times your oxide straight up and down, and then pH of the tract. And when we're going back, and you remember that hydrogen in there has a +1 charge. Well, guess what? That iron in there can have a +2 charge or a +3. And so when we start throwing those charges and you get very acidic, high concentration of hydrogen ions in that tract, then we can run into some issues there in terms of absorption. As I said before, sometimes, guys, I drink things with a little lime juice that has some citric acid. Other times, too, if I drink something that's high in electrolytes with potassium and with sodium, then I'll increase absorption. And so instead of feeling bloated, I can feel like it's getting to the tissues more like it needs. Chelating components a lot of times are going to be a simple amino acid, a glucose or a sugar molecule that helps with active absorption in the tract. And then the thing with excesses or interactions with minerals, and we've had a lot of cool research this summer at the farm, and we've noticed that we've got 6 or 7 times the iron in the soil that we do copper. And so even though we look and we say, hey, we've got, the 15 parts per million copper we need in the soil, that's a great thing to have. We look over the other side and we've got 150 parts iron. And so the analogy I always utilize is the elevator. And that elevator opens up down in the ground, and how many iron are going to get on and how many coppers. And if you got 150 irons down there, you're going to end up with quite a few more irons get in that elevator to get uplifted into the plant and utilized. And so we can end up with a copper deficiency, not because we have low copper, but because we have excesses of iron. And so that's where interactions come to play in those different charges as well. Now, deficiencies, pretty much whatever they are. Deficiency in calcium, we got brittle bones, we give up milk production. We'll get into more detail about deficiencies in minerals later in the semester.